we're going to go ahead and get started. So, hello everyone, welcome to our virtual roundtable today. This is a partnership between ACUOI and HECMA, the Higher Education Case Managers Association. My name is Spencer Giese. I'm a research and education specialist with ACUOI, and I have the great pleasure of being your moderator today on our virtual roundtable. Today's topic is case management and how we're able to work with students during this crisis and from afar, and how we can support students on our campuses and as they're no longer on our campuses. I'm joined by a number of outstanding co-facilitators today, as you'll see on our next slide, and we will hear from them shortly, and I'll have you hear a little bit more about their backgrounds, where they're from, and what they're experiencing in these times. We are also giving closed captioning an attempt today. So we are embracing more technology as we are engaging with one another from afar. So you can see our closed captioning on our live feed today. We will also be recording this session, and our recording will be on YouTube. And thank you, YouTube, for your great closed captioning abilities as well. So whether you were able to catch our live session today, this will also be recording. So let's move forward. Let's talk a little bit about today's session. So really, this is not your traditional webinar. If you've joined us for a virtual roundtable already, thank you for coming back. If this is your first time joining us, really we want audience participation here. So if you are a participant right now, you may be seeing just a few options. You're seeing probably a Q&A and a raised hand. So our attendees currently are not able to speak live, but over the course of our session, we'll do some interaction with our audience. I hope to call on some folks to have you share strategies you're using, things you're seeing on campus, etc. And then you're also able to use our Q&A button to submit topics that you'd like discussed, questions that you may have, etc. So you should also see a Q&A tab. That is where you can submit questions you have, topics you want to see us cover. I would ask that if you are submitting something there, in the spirit of networking and connecting, if you could put your name, institution, things like that there. What you'll find is that everyone in our session can see items put in the Q&A. They can comment on your questions. So another attendee might be able to network with you, connect with you, or share resources they have on their campus, or viewpoints, things they're experiencing, things like that. So a great way to engage throughout this is through our Q&A. And just to make sure that video and audio are coming through, and then to make sure the function also works, if you could hit the raised hand function, attendees, if you could hit that raised hand function, that's going to tell me that you're seeing us, you're hearing us, you are here, you are aware, connected, and enthusiastic. So thank you so much. I'm going to lower those hands because that obviously is working right now. That's great. And then as we go on, you'll see people comment in the Q&A. And, you know, I always know that with any session, the first couple are the toughest to get. And then usually it is a cascading waterfall of questions and comments once a few people start to chime in there in the Q&A. So thank you so much for engaging with us there. Really, the more you engage with this session, the more robust it will be for all of us in attendance. So thank you. For those of us asking, we're going to try to use our question and answer function more than our chat. We'll be able to really hold on to things more visibly in our Q&A. All right, so that is my piece to get us started for our session today. Again, I'm so thankful that we could partner with HECMA for this session and hopefully provide some great resources for our field. So that being said, let's hear from our co-facilitators. Let's get to know them a little bit more. So I'd ask each of you to introduce yourself to the group, share a little bit about your background, how your work connects with case management, and then also how your role and how your work has been impacted by COVID-19 at this point. So I'm going to have Laurel lead us off.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm Laurel Donnelly, and I am a case manager in student affairs at the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, which is located in Winston-Salem. I'm also president of HECMA. In terms of working on our campus as it pertains to the COVID-19 response, Obviously, I've continued to do our case management work, which is continuing to reach out to our students, but really partnered a lot with our housing staff and helping our students who were leaving campus for the semester and heading home. I continue to work on a daily basis through Zoom, continuing to check in with students who have been connected with our office in the past, and then new referrals that are coming in every day. In addition to working through emergency finance situations with students and food and housing insecurity.
Thanks, Laurel.
Thank you.
Amber.
Hi there, I'm Amber Ulmer. I'm the Associate Director of Residential Conduct and Community Standards at the University of California, Berkeley. So my typical role is encompassing of residential life case management in partnership with our Center for Support and Intervention. Also, I'm in charge of our crisis management or our duty structure, and then I also have oversight of our entire residential conduct system. So we've set up a structure in which I become the catch-all. We have 3 associate directors and a director, and we've structured our response in that our single undergraduate and our family housing associate directors are taking leads for their own portfolios, and the director and I are really trying to make sure none of the glass balls that are in the air ever hit the ground, and really trying to leverage our strategic partnerships during this time. I'm also continuing to do the case management that is trickling in. We're trying to actually figure out how to get different referrals in different ways than we have in the past because of our student staff not being in play in the same ways. We've actually removed them from their duty functions at this point. It was actually the first decision we made several hours after our initial online movement happened in March. So we're moving pretty fast. We are also preparing right now for the state of California to take over some of our housing bed spaces and really trying to figure out how do we consolidate our students so that we can have clear separation between these 2 populations.
Thanks, Amber.
Hi, everyone. My name is Analia Cuevas Powell. I'm the Assistant Director of Student Assistance and Behavioral Education here at the University of Arizona. So my role in housing is really case management for our residential students. So as many of you as well, my role has shifted in that I am still doing my typical case management, reaching out to those who either have shared that they are COVID-19 positive or have potential exposure or are quarantining in our res halls. I'm also really supporting our student staff members at this time. We have asked for some of them to leave if they would like, but are still supporting them if this is their place because they have nowhere else to stay. I'm continuing to work on emergency housing and continue to support our Dean of Students office with an emergency fund that was just recently established. So a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of follow-up, kind of correspondence with students, and just keeping up with my case management.
All right, thanks. Justin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Justin Kelly. I'm at Rutgers University, New Brunswick in New Jersey. There I serve as the Assistant Dean of Students for Advocacy and Outreach, a role that is pretty centralized in student affairs in terms of non-clinical case management for all of our students on our campus. Very much, alike to some of my colleagues here who've talked about their functions and their roles and how they've shifted over the past few weeks. We are very much in the thick of it at my institution as well. We're being in New Jersey and also so close to New York City, we are hit pretty hard. So we are trying our best to figure it all out. I'll talk some more later on about some of the challenges, but in terms of day-to-day work, utilizing a lot of the tech, WebEx, Zoom, phone, even FaceTime, trying to connect with students, make those referrals, working alongside our clinical case management team at the counseling center and our other partners in the non-clinical work in residence life. So we're there, we're in it. but I'm happy to be a part of the chat today with you all.
Thanks, Justin. Sasha.
Yeah, hi, my name is Sasha Massey. I serve as an Assistant Director of Residence Life at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio. And at Miami, I'm a live-on professional, so I serve in a lot of ways as that bridge. So as we were closing our residence halls and moving to remote, as our live-in staff were obviously student-facing, and we're the ones who were helping to really facilitate that expedited version of move out. I, as their supervisor, also living on campus, was that connection to the administration and to our central staff to help them as they're processing that. And then as we move forward, what our plans moving forward look like with our residence hall students, and how do we engage and build community while also obviously trying to keep everyone safe. And at Miami, we did consolidate our students. So we do have about 1,400 who have remained on campus and have been consolidated into a part of campus together. In addition to my role at Miami, I also serve as a regional advisor for the Central Atlantic affiliate of NACUR, which is a student-run organization. And I also was a faculty member for Stars College through ACUI for 3 years. And so the last 3 weeks have involved a lot of interacting with those groups as well, and helping these student leaders understand how to process through all of those emotions. And then in the past, one of the reasons why case management is a passion area of mine is I've served on emergency consult teams at other institutions, and so campus-wide consult for how do we create hypothetical case studies for situations like this, to which we are now living.
I'm Eric Sorensen. I'm an Assistant Director of Residence Life at Miami University as well, so I work with Sasha. So she's giving you a sense of what's happening on our campus. What I'll add to that is that we did communicate with students that we were going remote classes with a deadline of them coming back in April. Of course, then we closed the residence hall, so we do still have a lot of their stuff. So we're figuring out how to get students back here and get that sorted, which I think a lot of residence life operations are managing right now. We do have a plan to reach out to every student at the university in the next couple of weeks. We're doing virtual meetings and phone calls. So that's one of the specific initiatives Sasha was talking about. So we're trying to continue to make those connections, and that's where we're at.
Thanks, Eric. Let me get back to screen share. I will tell you that we've had some Zoom issues today, but we're going to fight through it because we've got such great people on the call. So, and really we're here for the conversation, not necessarily the slides. So again, you should be seeing a slide share, correct? You're seeing your lovely faces online. Perfect. Great. Again, we've got a lot of great questions coming in through the Q&A. So again, we really want this to be a conversation, as we spoke of before. So please chime in with your questions, and we can continue to engage with you through that. So let's dive in. So a couple of pieces with the Q&A. You do have the ability to upvote. So wow, you know, and I see a lot of great upvote support there in terms of just hoping everyone's hanging in there. So thanks. Wow, look at a lot of upvotes there. So let's see. Does anyone have specific plans for student, faculty, staff that pass away related to COVID-19? Heavy, but a lot of upvotes. So any of our co-facilitators, has that even been a broach topic or things that have been considered on your campuses?
I have to say, I actually wrote it down as something that we should bring up to how we would amend our death protocol that's already in place. I think residentially, we would hope that if we knew the student was that sick, we would have gotten them to a medical care facility before that happened. But knowing that that's absolutely a possibility, we would lean on our typical protocols and really try to think in the moment how we would bring communities together and respond if it felt differently, if differently a different response was appropriate.
Yeah, I know when cases have been confirmed at our institution, they are reaching out to folks who have been in contact with that person. Of course, they're not releasing names or any other information, but they are saying you've been in contact with someone who's been a confirmed case. And I imagine those same types of things would be occurring.
Yeah, our institution also has been pretty, or at least I have seen some communication come out about folks who have, tested positive for COVID-19 and making sure, like Eric said, that they are touching base with folks who may have been in contact. In terms of death of students and staff, I can't imagine that it'll be much different than what we normally do. But we are learning as we go every day, and everything here is changing 17 times a day. So hopefully we don't, encounter that. But, as you all probably can see on the news, our numbers here in terms of our state numbers are rapid daily. So it's pretty scary times.
Let's see. Another question that's come in from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. What types of emergency aid funding is available for your institution? What additional steps are you taking to assist students with basic needs and concerns during the pandemic?
So I'll jump in. I know we have, through my office, we manage an emergency fund. That's money, lots of gifts, but specifically money coming from our Board of Governors and our Board of Trustees. And so we have been, I'll say here at Rutgers, we have been really, leadership has been really flexible in how we use that money. I know there was a shift and change last week about how, we transition the money over to students who are in need, but we are using it as, much as we possibly can to help with food. One of the big initiatives on our campus recently has been the purchasing of Chromebooks for students who do not have tech access now that we have moved to, 100% remote instruction for the remainder of the school year. But our emergency fund, fingers crossed for us, we do have access in that way to provide food, our community food banks, our on-campus pantry as well. They've been tremendously supportive. Our community partners also in donating a lot of things. So as of right now, we are good with resources. I think one of the resources that's really starting to diminish, at least in my office, is staff. Our staff resources are dwindling, which, it's like we have great resources to use, but we are running low on people in the office and who are on campus to be able to facilitate, the handoff of a lot of those resources. So that, for us, I am a bit worried about how that will look in the next few weeks.
And this is Laurel. We have also, in terms of emergency fund, we operate an emergency fund out of our Dean of Students office. And last week, when there was some additional kind of push and ask for some things that we needed, our foundation office really plugged that people could give through our emergency fund program in addition to our food pantry. And that push really set us kind of, in terms of the food, we have lots of food to give students. So that's one of the things that we're doing on a weekly basis, is making sure that the students know that they can come and pick up food and how they can access that. And then we're obviously going through applications for emergency funds, and then also working with financial aid to see if there's ways that financial aid can assist students in addition to what we're able to provide.
I'll say specifically in our family housing unit, we do have a food and diaper bank specifically for that area of our housing. We have about 3,400 residents in family housing and about 1,000 apartments. And we have changed the requirements to be able to be eligible for those services because if you've just lost your job, it's going to take a little bit for that paperwork to catch up and be eligible. So we've amended some of those requirements. We've partnered with our on-campus food bank to move to 3 days a week providing services out there. And we have a full rec program out there that we've converted basically into basic needs support.
And one piece that I forgot to mention that has been really helpful, I think, or will be helpful for a lot of students. We are also doing refunds for housing and dining for the remainder of the semester. And I know some folks have been really pleased that at least that's some relief that they may see back in addition to some of the other funds and support that we've provided across our university.
Thanks all. Question that came up, I would direct it to Laurel, is just essentially it was the ability to kind of streamline case management resources. Is there any, I don't know if HECMA has created a website or any resources there that are kind of being compiled for folks to access?
So probably one of the resources that people are accessing a lot is our listserv, and our in terms of our case managers are really good about putting up a lot of the resources on the listserv. We haven't done a kind of database of resources. I think everything is kind of changing so quickly, and what everybody needs has been specific mostly to their areas. A lot of what I know we've worked with in our counseling centers is trying to get students connected back in their home areas. I know that in our reaching out to colleagues that we have that are potentially from that area, knowing who might be already on telehealth and those types of things. So I think a lot of it, what we're doing right now is just right on the listserv, just basically out of needing to access things quickly and kind of it being such a fast moving process.
Thank you. And co-facilitators, at any time, if you see a topic or you see a question you want to address, by all means, I implore you can jump in. Question from Luke, how are institutions preparing for summer and fall housing? And if we're there yet. So I don't know, co-facilitators, if we've got folks that are already thinking about it, or if we don't even want to think about that yet, because we've got the next week or two to get through.
Yeah, we don't want to think about it, but we are thinking about it. Yeah, we, I think, so we're proceeding optimistically, but Sasha and I both oversee some of our training processes, and we are planning in-person trainings for July and August, and we have a very robust backup virtual plan for that. We are prepared to move back our move-in date if needed, such that we would just push everything back and classes would be remote in the meantime. We do have faculty having conversations about going remote for the start of the semester. We're hoping that's not where we end up, but we will be prepared if we do. So essentially, we would just push everything back, hope to get students on campus as soon as we're allowed to do so.
I'll echo just what Eric said. At the U of A, we're kind of preparing the same. We're prepared to move training like as normal. However, we are kind of getting ready to do that online portion. I think the one thing that we're still kind of trying to figure out is what we're going to do in the summer for our summer students, especially those international students that may not be able to go home. We are consolidating our halls into two of our largest halls right now. They have suite style bathrooms and rooms. That way we are able to minimize that community living spaces. So I think we're just trying to think critically as to like, how are we going to move forward with summer? And should we remain in one of the halls that's already consolidated, or should we move forward with our typical kind of what we already plan to do? So that's kind of still kind of at our forefront.
I was just going to add the one thing, I mean, talking about summer, our orientation has made the decision that they would go online, so there will not be any in-person orientation. And so as such, we think about that from an institutional standpoint, that like admissions and orientation and trying to get the next class falls on the entire institution. And so we are anticipating a drop. Students who originally had, applied or even accepted their place, what happens when that class shrinks. And so orientation, while going online, we as an institution, so Residence Life included, other offices, Dean of Students Office, are trying to reach out to those students to try to retain them. So that is our first step. We focus on orientation now, but that is our first summer task that has officially been called, that won't occur face-to-face.
Thanks, Helen. Next question, we're going to do some audience participation. So I've got John from University of Bridgeport online. So John, if you could unmute yourself, introduce yourself to the group, and then ask your question.
Hi, everyone. My name is John from University of Bridgeport. Nice to be with you all today. I had a question about many of our students who we see through our care team who cite family issues as being one of their primary stressors. And now most of those students are at home with their families and trying to balance their online coursework with those family issues. So I'm wondering if anyone has some creative or effective ideas for how to support those students at this very vulnerable time.
I'll go ahead and start. I know that we've started within this last week really reaching out to those students, offering them time to talk with us. I've done a couple of Zoom meetings with students in the last couple of days just so that they know that they're not forgotten, and really just trying to connect with them and process through it, knowing that it's a really difficult time. Talking to them about what are some things that are really happening that and they need some assistance with right now, and then trying to help them work through some of that. A lot of them are leaning into a lot of other students who might be experiencing some of the same pieces, the same problems. And so we're trying to figure out a way that we can kind of virtually continue to support them in that aspect.
I was just going to add, so Miami University Office of Residence Life, we do intentional conversations during the year, so one-on-ones with our residents, and we typically hit probably about 80% of our residents will have an intentional conversation with the head hall, their grad or their full-time staff member, and as we've moved remote, we have included that as part of our plan, so we're still planning and scheduling those one-on-one appointments, either over phone or Zoom or some other medium, and then we've had other offices outside of Residence Life who are planning to help pick up so that we hit the 100% mark. So the goal is that every student has a reach out and has a spring one-on-one to talk about how are they transitioning to remote learning, what are they experiencing, and we have sort of a script that's created, sort of a tree of issues. So if the student says, I'm really struggling with my courses and being able to do it this way, we have our learning center information and how do you get tutoring and how do you get support there. If they share some mental health concerns, what does counseling look like? What does the referral process look like? There's a national hope line, sharing those resources are included in that script. So for Residence Life side of the house, it wasn't a hard transition because we were used to having these intentional conversations. They just aren't in person. And then we're very lucky in Residence Life that, again, our institution, our student life division really is thinking about how do we support every part of student life together. And so with these intentional conversations, those other offices are adding with us so that we hopefully hit 100% of those students, or at least 100% opportunity to have a one-on-one with someone. And then on the flip side, then we're then helping those other offices with things like orientation and admissions and things like that.
And I'd say, maybe for all of us, it's safe to say across the board that when we eventually come to the point where we talk about some of the challenges, this is probably the hardest thing that I know my office and a lot of us at Rutgers are feeling, and I'm seeing a lot of head nods from some partners on this. I think what has happened and what we've been able to do prior to COVID-19 and this whole, crisis globally, we've had access. Maybe not all of us have the same levels of access, but, times like now, I'm really thankful for all of the resources that we have our pulse on and are able to just tap into right away. But it's hard because a lot of those resources are now restricted or limited, but in terms of my caseload, that I'm seeing, a lot of the students that I've been talking to every day for the past 2 weeks are these students. And so I just had a conversation yesterday with one of the clinical social workers at our counseling center, and we both were like, what do we do? So right now it is a lot of that planning. It's a lot of, many of them, the res halls haven't completely closed, and they still will be open at Rutgers for some of the vulnerable populations. But beyond that, we're really on like a 4-week planning. Like, you may only be able to be allowed to stay on campus for the next 3-4 weeks, but beyond that, we really have to start going down the list of, who are you able to stay with? No situation may be good or ideal, but of 3 not so good situations, what's the one that you may be able to move into, at least temporarily? But a lot of our community resources in terms of shelters, they're all risky right now. And so unfortunately, that's one of the questions that I have for all of us. And I know that's one of the questions that people have for us. And unfortunately, I haven't quite figured that one out yet.
I think something that we're doing different here too at the U of A, we started this campaign probably around 2 years ago. We send out nudge emails to all of our residential students. And these nudge emails go along the line of just their development, their student development. And I think students have gotten really used to like getting these emails at like specific timing. And so when this happened, that's one of the first things we did, is just say like, hey, we're still here to support you, and like a picture of me on the email. And we got a lot of responses just to say like, thank you, like I'm home and I'm hating this, I feel lonely, but you're here. And I appreciate that. So I think even that, just one email to say like, I see you, I'm sorry this is happening, but I'm here to support you, I think was really impactful. I continue to have my Zoom meetings, and the number one topic that we talk about is loneliness. And that's a big thing that we just talked about in our behavioral intervention team meeting just now, is how do we support these students through loneliness and maybe potential symptoms of depression. So it's definitely kind of the hardest thing to talk about, because there's little we could do, right, with the situation. But I don't know, it's challenging, but for a lot of students, just the fact that we're there to hear them out, to support them, I think it has a greater impact than we imagine.
Thanks, all.
The only thing I'll say is that we got really honest about what life in the residence halls are going to look like and the risk that they're going to be associated with. And we're going to let people stay if they need to stay. We're not going to discern. We're not going to delve into their stories as much. We're going to take it that they need to stay. And we're going to try to create a physical and emotional safety net around them as much as we can, for as long as we can.
And if you are an audience member and you've got something great to share on this topic that you'd like to with the group, now's your chance to raise your hand and potentially get called on to share to the group. All right. Glenn, I'm going to call on you right now. Glenn Harris Jr., if you could unmute yourself, introduce yourself to the group, and then share, that would be great.
Sure. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. So my name is Glenn Harris. I'm a case manager at the University of North Georgia. And we have kind of like a multidisciplinary approach that we're doing here to support students who are in need, but also provide support for those students who are working on our campus, and as student workers who are using that to supplement and support themselves in their life. And so we developed what we call a student connections program. And essentially we are using former student employees who are working around the university as our outreach agents. And so we are getting reports from, when I'm not sure if many of you have that 2-factor authentication that you have to use in order to log into your databases. Many students haven't registered for that yet. So we know if they haven't registered for that yet, that they can't access D2L and get into their online assignments. And so we're pulling those reports. We're also pulling reports from students that have not been active in D2L at all. And these students are doing some initial outreach to them to say, hey, we're concerned about you. We just, inquire about technology issues. We know that a lot of students are either not going to have access to internet or Wi-Fi or a reliable computer source. And so the initial communication is really kind of based off of the technology piece. And then as the other issues arise, let's just say they include things about my housing situation, or they include things about homelessness and food insecurity, then we have different people who are responsible to receive those types of reports. So my area is based off of homelessness and food insecurity, while somebody else might be focused on on financial aid and like the financial pieces. Somebody else might be concerned about some academic withdrawals and things along those. So we kind of have different people who are assigned those different areas that we think that those students might have issues with. And so we're using our student leaders to, one, help ensure that they get money, but then two, they are kind of like our hands and feet when getting out to some of the others.
Thanks, Glenn. And I want to definitely give a shout out to our attendees who are in the Q&A and supplying answers to other questions. Like, I'm seeing really lively chat and commenting there. So thank you all for using that back channel to stay connected and help provide resources to others. I have Laura Boyd on the line. Laura had a great question in the chat that I'm going to have Laura unmute yourself, introduce yourself to the group, and then share your question.
At NC State University, and I'm also a CARES coordinator. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is how you all are supporting your students who are now in the new online environment, and they're saying, this is overwhelming, it's unmanageable, I am stressed out, and I need more academic resources, but they don't really know how to identify what they need yet. And beyond online tutoring, what are some creative things that might be happening out there? Thank you.
So I'll say, so my office, for us at Rutgers, our Dean of Students office is quite unique. A lot of Dean of Students offices have really moved to be more central, like student advocacy, case management functions. I am one of 4 Dean of Students on my campus. My primary role is all of the non-clinical case management work for student affairs. Our other deans do a lot of that academic support, guidance work for our students. So I'd say, with in addition to the stuff that I'm working on a daily basis, the bulk of the work coming into our office right now are questions and concerns, just like the ones that you just posed, Laura. All of students have been instructed to really email all of their inquiries into us, and we are wheeling and dealing like crazy with a lot of the academic schools to think outside of the box and to provide that support for students who are now basically in online classes. I'll admit I'm also a student and I hate online classes, but I'm now being forced to take one and I'm struggling also. So it is a real big challenge for a lot of our students who are like, this is why I purposely never ever intended to register for an online course, but here we are. So we are academic services for a lot of our schools at Rutgers are really rolling out some pretty creative office hours and telecommute, meet ways that they are able to provide support for students, drop-in hours. The old-fashioned phone still works. So a lot of people are like, I don't like to do this visual thing, but I would still prefer to just call in and speak to someone. So for us, that's a lot of what we're seeing also. But we are really thankful to have some pretty awesome academic partners across the university who are, this is their wheelhouse. So where it's really new for me and a lot of folks in my office, they're like, oh, this is the stuff that we do every day and we study. So we're we're already on the ground trying to meet those students where they are in terms of navigating the new world of online instruction.
And this is
Yeah.
Laurel, and I think we're getting a lot of those referrals, especially when I'm doing a lot of the one-on-one meetings with students and just trying to help them navigate, listening to them and hearing them talk about what their struggle is. Sometimes it's near like that the Zoom audio and video is on at the same time, and they're having a really hard time navigating them both at the same time. Talking to them about resources in our Learning Resource Center and how they can do those as well, and just trying to talk with them about some of the technology issues, which I think some of the have been challenging for some students, especially as it comes to the different types of learning styles that people have. And I think people are really noticing that has been a challenge as well. And so trying to talk them through what some of those challenges might be, some additional solutions, and then some additional people, even if it's just connecting to that resource on campus, and helping them with that in an email or additional phone call, those types of things.
And also just recognizing that, this is a talent. This is a new way of learning that many people are really big thrusted into having to figure out right away. So I know one of the other things I was just talking to some colleagues about, the fact that we have moved also to pass no credit. So that will now be an option. So even thinking creatively about how we do grading at the end of the year, that we could really talk at length about that as an option, but I think that's also one of those things that was put on the table because we recognize that, many folks' learning styles are very different, and this just may not be the style for many of our students. So how can we make changes to the grading policy at the end of the semester to accommodate some of the challenges and struggles that folks may have had to get through academic content. Many are thriving, but there are a lot of folks who are not. And so even, for us, changing that grading policy, moving into the final, leg of the semester has been or will be a good offering for the students who have struggled.
Yeah, I also wonder if now is a good time for us to cash in some of our chips with some of our faculty relationships. I'm teaching a class this semester, and I think it's really nudging faculty to not be doing less, but to be doing more, making sure they're doing online office hours. I think is a great opportunity to do just little short videos that you can send out to class or put up on a Blackboard site or a Canvas site or a website of some sort that students can engage with you in different ways. I think that's the stuff that's going to help us most, particularly to Laurel's point, giving something that just looks a little different. So for the student who has a hard time sitting there trying to navigate the technology, what else can I be doing as faculty to help you? I think we can help guide some of that because we know how to work with students, and our faculty know how to teach, and some of them are great with students too. But for those who aren't, how do we get those together? I think that will help us too. And I've made myself very available to the students in my class, and that has been very much appreciated.
So let's talk about support. So case management, incredibly difficult, incredibly taxing. What ways are you finding support? What ways are you giving support? Not necessarily to students in this case, but to other case managers or just your network. What are you seeing that's successful? What's been helpful? What can you share with our group?
I would say for me, it's kind of checking in with your colleagues and your peers, seeing how they're doing, because one of the things I think that's really hard, and I'll even say it for me personally, is to sit with a student, even in a Zoom meeting, and have them cry on the other line and know that you can't reach out and you can't make it better and you can't give a hug where they would have wanted a hug in the past. And that when you disconnect from that Zoom meeting, that you've lost connection potentially with that person. You have to hope that everything's okay, but that you still care for that individual and you're still carrying that through. And so I think for us as a staff, one of the things that we have actually really tried to do a little bit more is more intentional check-ins with those of us who are doing a lot of a lot of direct student care, just to talk about how we're doing. And even if it's doing some kind of really fun video that we're going to post on our new virtual student site, just to kind of give our mind and give us something else to engage in, but really knowing that we have to take care of ourselves in this situation, and know that our hearts are also there for our students, but we have to kind of try to find that balancing line.
Yeah, I think the touch points are a big part. I mean, thinking about the fact that we went from a system in which we were interacting with the staff that we engage with or we supervise on probably a daily basis, and we're now not doing that, particularly as upper administration are the ones who are typically remote and home, while some of the essential staff tend to be our newer professionals. What does that feel like for them? Where's that connection? And so our vice president had asked for us to connect with each of our direct reports every day, and that doesn't mean that we have a one-on-one. That means a text message, that means an email, that means some way I've connected with that person. And so I've thought about little ways to continue to engage. Some of those business, some of those not. And so I have a team meeting once a week. I at first thought about having a team meeting twice a week to give information, and I realized that wasn't what they need. They don't need the information, they just want the connection. So I do a daily coffee hour. My team and I meet on Zoom or on the Google Meets, and at 1 o'clock each day we share a beverage and just talk non-business. I also do a video update each day where I do give them the here's your top 3 things, because I had staff members who told me they were overwhelmed. The governor was emailing us. So for those of you who don't know, the governor of Ohio was one of the most aggressive in the stay at home and shut it down real quick. And so there was a lot of emails from the governor, the president of the university, every layer of supervisor. And so I had staff members who were saying, my head's spinning. I will read those emails, but I would also like just to say, today's Wednesday, what are the 3 things I need to do before 5 o'clock? And so I do a video update where I share with them what their goal is for today. And they find that to be a nice touch point. It's not an email, they're getting a lot of that, they see my face. And so I find those things to be really important. And then whenever I can, I mentioned that I live on campus. And so the benefit of that is I know that they're in their buildings and in their apartments and are maybe missing human contact. And so doing little things like leaving chalk messages outside their window, or, whatever, doing things that they can see and know, dancing in front of their window, things like that. But I think the other really big part is when we talk about case management, one of the things that I really want my staff to understand is that this is in a lot of ways uncharted territory. And I want a role model that it is okay to be fallible and to say that we have to adjust. And sometimes adjusting even means saying what I said on Monday isn't true on Wednesday. And so a great example of that is when we first were going to close our buildings, I had a staff member who asked about cutting a corner or doing a process that would be a shortcut. And I said, no. On Monday, I said, no, that's not what we're going to do. And then by Wednesday, things changed. We released all of our RAs. The load on the staff were a lot higher. I wasn't interested in paying full-time professionals to do some of the things that the RAs were doing. And so I was the first one advocating for them to cut that corner. And I had a returning staff member who joked with me and said, well, yesterday you said not to do that. And I said, sure, because on Monday, I give you a Monday answer. And on Wednesday, I give you a Wednesday answer. And it is okay for your Monday answer and your Wednesday answer to not be the same. And I think role modeling that it is all right for me to say, yep, what I said on Monday isn't correct, lets them feel better with them not having all the answers and not knowing what to do next. And I find that that is one of the biggest things for new professionals is they feel like why am I getting paid if I don't know how to do this thing? And to show them that it is okay to not have the correct answer all the time.
I'll say for me, I think early on when this started to really evolve, I'll just be fully transparent with you all. I have really bad health anxiety. And so this has been, for me, really, really hard. I'll be fully transparent again. 3 of us in our office, including myself, have developed symptoms. So we are awaiting our own test and trying to figure it out for us. But just being open to moving the conversation away from how much of this work we do for our students and for other people, and how we can move into having conversations about how to be protective of ourselves, being realistic about what it is that we no longer can do and we have started to not feel great. That's one of the, I don't even know, one of those bittersweet things about being an essential office. While many of our other offices and student affairs have closed, we are the hub. And as I'm looking at Laurel and I'm looking at a lot of my other colleagues and seeing the comments, we are all the offices where students go all of the time, including times like now. And so it's hard, like at where we are today on April 1st, like it is incredibly hard for us to still be that support for students, but stepping into a space where we also need to protect ourselves. And, there have been things that I honestly have not been able to do because I have been at home fighting my own battles, as have other people in my office. We have staff who are over 60 and have moved into that danger zone in terms of exposure. So we're there and, we're having a lot of those conversations, and that has been really comforting to be able to step into that space and say, all right, like from 3 to 4, we're no longer talking about the students. We've talked about them up until this point. Can we please talk about a plan that's now going to be more centered around our own health and safety? And Justin's tapped out, like I can't come to the office. I can't come to sign up for that shift to do food pantry, handouts or to hand out the Chromebooks. So that for me has been really tough because I'm home trying to feel good and feel better, and worrying about, my own home space and people around me. But also still trying to maintain a face and a web presence with all of my students. So I think for me, that has been really supportive and has felt really good for me to be in conversations with partners who are not only talking about what we're doing for students, but also like what this means for us being the frontline people for a lot of the issues and concerns. We all are the people that many of these vulnerable students are coming to, but, here we are not exempt from the concerns and the health risks that are out there right now. Thank you, Joanne, for telling me. I hope you're okay. I'm feeling okay today. Thank you.
Justin, you're getting a lot of Q&A love, so thanks for your vulnerability and thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I think my answer is that I have a few answers. One, we got crystal clear on what our priorities are as a unit. We recently made a transition about 18 months ago out of our auxiliary residential unit where we were housed with our facilities and our dining partners, and we're moved to the Dean of Students cluster where our Center for Support and Intervention and our conduct office are, among others. And so we've actually been able to lean on those partnerships in both directions because we have them. It has helped us actually do the thing we've been trying to do for like 4 years, which was prioritize what's important to us and the things that we have to stop. We also leaned into our project management. We have a project management philosophy for all of our work. We really leaned into that and said, put where you are on all your projects on your project planning sheets, and we need to stop that. So we need to give ourselves grace. We need to give ourselves the ability to say, we can't do this right now, even if it is in support of students. We have a different function right now. I think it also, we were able to leverage our relationships both ways. So we were able to push some of the things that normally we would do to other offices, and that has been able to show our staff that other people want to step in and help, even if they have to do it from remote places. One of the most beautiful things that I saw was our case management office actually came to campus one day and did all of our lockouts for us. We figured out a way for them to step in and do our lockouts because that was the thing that was really weighing on our staff. And that was awesome for them to see that. I think the other thing that I'll say is that I have been, and the leadership of the department have been putting what Brene Brown would call marbles into people's marble jars from the day we interviewed them. We have been trying to create a culture that people can raise their hand and say, I'm scared, but I'm okay to be brave, and I'm okay to do this work. And it's okay to tap out when you're not.
Thanks, Amber. I want to be mindful of time because we've had so much content, and I can't tell you, Laurel, we're going to want to do this again because we've got a lot of folks that this is really helpful and really salient, and there's a lot of resources being shared. A couple notes I'd say, we're not done yet, but a couple notes. In our Q&A chat, if you're seeing great content there that you want to keep with you, once we exit out of this virtual roundtable, you're going to lose that Q&A. So I highly recommend if you want to copy something down and paste it in a Word document or into an email so you've got those resources, feel free to copy and paste those as you do wish. I want to take it around the horn and hear from each of our co-facilitators one last time, and really kind of a takeaway for the group. So maybe that's a life thing you're doing for yourself. Maybe it is something you've learned in our work and how it's going to change in the future. It's your last word, your last tip to give to the group. It can be life, can be work, can be fun. Go watch a show that you want to binge. Totally up to you all. Add the human element in, but I want to hear from everybody before we wrap up. So we'll throw it around the horn. Whoever wants to go first, you're welcome to go first.
And I'll just keep to the tone, like we are all very special people when I think about this work and what it means and how much we give all of the time. And we tell our students all the time as well, like you can't help someone else unless you're helping yourself. So I think, this is a reminder, this is like a real life, like in your face, here's that opportunity for you to practice what you preach. So my message to all of you would be to just, think about yourselves also in this. It's really, really hard for all of us. And I think I've had so much time to sit and be bored of Netflix shows. And I'm like, I wonder about Laurel. And I wonder about all, Holly. And I'm like, I wonder about all these friends who are out there doing this work. So just make sure that you, you take time to think about you and your families and the other people who rely heavily on you and your work in your personal lives. We do great work for our students, but we sometimes forget to do it for ourselves. So let's practice that moving forward more if we don't already do it enough.
Thanks, Justin. It's been really great to be a part of this. I think for me, my takeaway of all of this is it's so important now more than ever to stay connected. I so appreciate the time of even during our behavioral intervention team, we set aside a full hour just for us to talk about how we're doing and to talk about kind of this grief that we're feeling, because that's what we're feeling. But that the work that we do is so intentional to our students that we oftentimes don't look in. So staying connected with my colleagues has been really important to me and makes me feel grounded, makes me feel what I'm doing is normal. So I think that's my takeaway.
I would say that my takeaway has been obviously the piece about the self-care and remembering that we have to take care of ourselves a lot, as Justin and Analia had said. But one of my friends over the weekend, I'm in North Carolina, so we didn't get our stay-at-home order until this past week, and it's for 30 days. And so one of my friends challenged me to think about, because I'm always thinking about others, what would it look like to really be selfish a little bit and think about myself? And what at the end of the 30 days I would have wanted to see accomplished for myself. So on Saturday, I leaned into that and made out a little map plan of how I wanted the next 30 days to be for me. And so, however many days into it, I don't even know, I can't keep track of the days, but I can say I've actually done something for me every day. And that has really felt good. And it's not that I'm being selfish, it's just the one way something I can do to take care of me.
Yeah, and I love all that advice, and I of course totally agree. I'm a big video gamer. It's a good time to be a video gamer, so go get out there and play games, folks. But I think also it feels like morale, right? Like everybody's morale is just getting hit all the time, and so I'm a big jokester anyway. So I like to send my team stuff, a lot of memes. We're talking on GroupMe all the time. We're just joking around all the time. So even remotely, trying to just bring everybody's energy up a little. Because even in my one-on-ones virtually, I'm feeling the lower energy. I'm having lower energy. So I think, again, what everybody said, do what we can for ourselves, but also let's do our best to get our energy up whenever we can and help others get their energy up, I think is good for everybody.
And I guess just because he won't say it for himself, I also will recommend that you look into Eric's research, because Eric researches vicarious trauma and this idea that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so I echo what a lot of people have said, like take care of yourself first, because when you take on that burden of trying to take care of a lot of other people, if I'm a 2 on the Enneagram, and so I think about it as they need me and they can't have me if there's no me to give them. So take care of yourself first.
Because I live in California, I have started my garden. I can actually plant things because of the weather, and that's been incredibly peaceful. You know, I think it's leaning into your own self-care practices that you had before this and trying to figure out, are those working? And if not, what are other ones that could work? The last thing I'll say is that I think we've been as a country in the middle of a loneliness epidemic, and we haven't said it out loud. And this has actually been a blessing to bring us together in new, fun ways. Like, you know, when I was growing up, it was not strange for someone to knock on my door that I didn't know was coming over. And now, like, I would lose my crap on someone if they knocked on my door and just wanted to come visit me. And so, like, wow, what a blessing this has been to be able to have people virtually in my living room playing Jackbox games that I'm like, I would literally never have invited you to my house. So that's been super cool.
Well, gosh, and usually my caveat here, I'm usually telling people to journal once a day, write down a few things, like 2 sentences. Like, let's not get carried away. Don't get a writer's cramp, but just write down a couple of things you saw that day. It'll blow you away. And a topic I really wish we could have gotten to. We're gonna experience a new normal here. We're gonna come out of this, and there are gonna be so many processes that we change for the future, and we're going to keep them. We're going to learn things that we're like, didn't they do that way? We made it too complicated, and our focus can really come back to students. And, you know, we'll cut some of the processes we don't need so we can engage with students more and remember that focus. Before we go, a couple things, and I know we're very short on time. We've got a few ACUI resources, so please take a look at those. We did another straw poll last week. Our second straw poll results came out last week. Those are pretty fascinating. ACUI is hosting 2 more virtual roundtables this week. We've got a senior housing officer virtual roundtable tomorrow. It's going to be talking about spaces flipping and potentially being used by outside organizations, hospitals, military, etc. And then on Friday, we have another partnership event we're talking about facilities. We're going to be talking about that with ACUI and NERSA. And then next week, so next Tuesday, we're going to be talking about building community from afar as we kind of look at what we can be doing in residence life to engage with students who are no longer on our campuses. Co-facilitators, thank you so much for your time, energy. This was a really riveting conversation. Again, I hope that you were able to grab some of those comments and pieces out of the Q&A. We have an online community at ACUI that we've got threads that are dedicated to COVID-19 resources. I hope that we can start getting threads. So Eric, Sasha, some of that stuff you talked about, please put that in the online community. Let's start some threads about pieces that are not just facilities based, because we've got to be talking about the students and how we're engaging with them and where case management really comes in to play here. So thank you so much for all your time, your energy. Our attendees, thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon. This will be posted on YouTube and our social media and our website and all that. So resources are out there. Copy and paste those before we go. Thank you, everyone.